Welcome to Fairy Tales and Bedtime Stories. Today's story is Pinocchio. Once in a quaint Italian village, there lived a kind, elderly woodcarver named Geppetto. In his cozy workshop filled with wood shavings and the scent of pine, Geppetto decided to carve a puppet, a boy, from a unique piece of wood. As he chiseled and shaped, the wood seemed almost magical, warm to the touch, and humming with a life of its own. Geppetto worked through the night, his skilled hands bringing the puppet to life, piece by piece. He named the puppet Pinocchio, a name filled with hope and love. As the first rays of dawn peeped through the window, something miraculous happened. The wooden puppet stirred. With a creak of his joints, Pinocchio sat up, his painted eyes wide with wonder. "Goodness!" exclaimed Geppetto in astonishment. "You're alive." Pinocchio looked around curiously, every movement a novelty. He swung his legs, wiggled his wooden fingers, and then, with a tentative effort, stood up. Geppetto's heart swelled with joy and pride as he watched Pinocchio take his first wobbly steps. The old woodcarver had always longed for a son, and now, by some enchantment, his wish had come true. He taught Pinocchio to walk, to jump, and to dance. The puppet's movements were awkward at first, but soon he was prancing around the workshop, laughing with a childlike glee. As the day progressed, Geppetto realized Pinocchio needed to learn about the world. "You must go to school, learn to read and write, and understand what's right and wrong," Geppetto said, his voice warm but firm. Pinocchio, with his ever-present curiosity, listened intently. He wanted to make Geppetto proud, to be good and wise, but the world outside the workshop was vast and unknown. Pinocchio felt both excitement and a twinge of fear about the adventures that lay ahead. That night, as Pinocchio lay in his little wooden bed, the blue fairy, who had given him life, appeared in a shimmering glow. "Pinocchio," she said softly, "your journey is just beginning. Always strive to be brave, truthful, and unselfish, and someday, you might become a real boy." Pinocchio's wooden heart beat with hope and determination. He promised to be good and drifted into a peaceful sleep, dreaming of the adventures that awaited him. And thus, the story of the wooden boy who yearned to be real began. The next morning, with the sun casting golden beams through the windows, Geppetto handed Pinocchio a few coins. "This is for your school books," he said, beaming with pride. Pinocchio, his heart full of good intentions, set out for school, his wooden feet clattering on the cobblestone streets. As Pinocchio walked through the bustling village, his eyes were filled with the wonders of the world. Everything was so new and fascinating to him. However, his journey to school took an unexpected turn when he heard the captivating sound of music and laughter. It was coming from a brightly colored puppet show, and Pinocchio, forgetting his promise to Geppetto, was irresistibly drawn to it. The puppet master, seeing Pinocchio, was amazed by the sight of a walking, talking wooden puppet without strings. He immediately saw an opportunity and convinced Pinocchio to join the show, promising fame and fortune. Pinocchio, naive and easily swayed, agreed, dreaming of returning home with gold for Geppetto. The puppet show was a spectacle. Pinocchio performed marvelously, earning cheers and applause from the audience. For a moment, he basked in the glory, forgetting all about school and his duties. However, when the show ended, the puppet master revealed his true colors. He locked Pinocchio in a cage, planning to use him as a permanent attraction to make money. That night, the blue fairy appeared to Pinocchio in his cage. "Why did you not go to school?" she asked, her voice a mix of disappointment and kindness. Pinocchio, scared and ashamed, lied, saying he had been kidnapped. As he lied, his wooden nose began to grow, longer and longer. The blue fairy, seeing this, explained, "Pinocchio, every lie you tell will make your nose grow. Only the truth can make it go back to normal." Pinocchio, realizing his mistake, confessed everything. With a wave of the fairy's wand, his nose returned to normal, and the cage opened. Pinocchio ran all the way home, his lesson learned the hard way. He found Geppetto waiting, worried but relieved to see him. That night, Pinocchio promised himself and Geppetto that he would never stray from the path of truth and responsibility again. He now understood that the world was full of temptations and challenges, but also that honesty was his guide. Determined to right his wrongs, Pinocchio set out for school once more, his spirits high, but the world was full of twists and turns, and soon Pinocchio found himself on another unexpected path. This time, he met a cunning fox and a deceitful cat, who convinced him that planting his coins in the field of miracles would make them multiply. Pinocchio, still naive and hopeful for quick riches, followed their advice, only to realize too late that he had been tricked. His coins were gone, and he was left feeling foolish and regretful. It was another hard lesson for Pinocchio about trust and the perils of greed. Dejected, he decided to return home to Geppetto, but his troubles were far from over. On his way, he was captured by a ruthless puppeteer, who threatened to use him for firewood. Terrified, Pinocchio thought of Geppetto and how much he had disappointed him. In a stroke of luck, the blue fairy intervened once more, asking Pinocchio why he wasn't at school. Ashamed of his continuous failures, Pinocchio lied, causing his nose to grow again. With gentle reproach, the blue fairy reminded Pinocchio of the virtues of honesty. Pinocchio, his nose returned to normal, realized the depth of his errors. He promised to change, to be brave, truthful, and selfless. The fairy, seeing the sincerity in his heart, freed him, and Pinocchio continued his journey home. However, Pinocchio's adventures were not yet over. He found himself lured into the land of toys, a place where children played all day, with no rules, no school, and no responsibilities. It was a place of endless fun, but Pinocchio soon discovered the dark truth behind it. The children, including Pinocchio, began to transform into donkeys, a punishment for their laziness and disobedience. In the nick of time, Pinocchio escaped, but not without a pair of donkey ears and a tail as reminders of his folly. Frightened and regretful, he longed for nothing more than to return to Geppetto and live a life of honesty and hard work. As he made his way home, Pinocchio's adventures had taught him valuable lessons. He had seen the consequences of deceit, the dangers of idle pleasures, and the importance of making wise choices. He was not yet a real boy, but he was learning what it meant to be one. After escaping the land of toys, Pinocchio's only thought was to return to Geppetto. But when he reached home, he found it empty. A kindly dove informed him that Geppetto, thinking Pinocchio had drowned at sea, had gone in search of him in a boat. Fearing for his father's safety, Pinocchio bravely plunged into the ocean, determined to find him. In the vast, open sea, Pinocchio faced many challenges. He encountered fierce storms, hungry sharks, and strange sea creatures. Despite his fear and exhaustion, Pinocchio's love for Geppetto drove him onward. He refused to give up, showing a courage he didn't know he had. After days of searching, Pinocchio's journey took a terrifying turn when he was swallowed by a giant whale, the same whale that had swallowed Geppetto. Inside the dark belly of the whale, Pinocchio finally found his father, weak and weary. Their reunion was a mix of tears and joy. Geppetto was overjoyed to see Pinocchio but saddened by their dire situation. Together, father and son devised a plan to escape. Pinocchio suggested they build a fire to make the whale sneeze. It was a dangerous plan, but it was their only hope. They gathered driftwood from inside the whale, and Pinocchio, using the skills he had learned from Geppetto, helped to build a fire. The smoke from the fire tickled the whale's nose, and with a mighty sneeze, it expelled them into the ocean. They clung to a piece of driftwood, exhausted but free. The bond between Pinocchio and Geppetto had never been stronger. Geppetto saw how much Pinocchio had grown, how brave and resourceful he had become. As they floated, the currents carried them to shore. They arrived in the village, weary but safe. The villagers were amazed by their incredible tale of survival and Pinocchio's heroic actions. Pinocchio, once a carefree puppet, had shown the virtues of bravery, love, and selflessness. That night, as Pinocchio lay in bed, he thought about his journey, the mistakes he had made, and the lessons he had learned. He realized that being brave and loving wasn't just about big gestures, it was about making the right choices every day. As he drifted to sleep, Pinocchio hoped that he was closer to becoming a real boy, not just in form, but in heart and spirit. Back in the village, life returned to a semblance of normalcy for Pinocchio and Geppetto. Yet, the adventures had changed Pinocchio. He was no longer just a carefree puppet, he had grown in character, understanding the value of hard work, honesty, and caring for others. Pinocchio, now more responsible, took on various jobs to support Geppetto, who had fallen ill. He worked tirelessly, proving his dedication and love for his father. Each day, Pinocchio faced challenges, but he met them with courage and a newfound wisdom. He no longer sought shortcuts or gave in to temptations. His focus was on doing what was right and good. One day, while working hard, Pinocchio was visited by the Blue Fairy. She saw the change in him, his selflessness, his honesty, and his bravery. "Pinocchio," she said, "you have proved yourself worthy." With a wave of her wand, a magical transformation began. Pinocchio felt a strange sensation. He looked down to see his wooden body transforming into that of a real boy. His wooden limbs turned into flesh and blood, his painted face into a real one. He could feel his heart beating, his lungs breathing. Overwhelmed with joy and wonder, he ran to Geppetto. Geppetto, weak but overjoyed, could hardly believe his eyes. His little wooden puppet, his son, had become a real boy. The love and pride he felt were beyond words. The villagers, hearing of the miracle, gathered around, marveling at the transformed Pinocchio. The story of the wooden puppet who became a real boy spread far and wide. People spoke of Pinocchio's journey, his struggles, and his virtues. He became a symbol of hope and a testament to the power of love, honesty, and bravery. Pinocchio spent his days caring for Geppetto and helping others in the village. He never forgot the lessons he had learned through his adventures. His life was filled with challenges, but also with happiness and love. And in his heart, he knew that the magic that had transformed him came not from a fairy's wand, but from the love he shared with Geppetto and the good choices he made each day. As Pinocchio grew, so did his wisdom and kindness. He lived a full life, always remembering that he was once a wooden puppet who dreamed of being real. And in the end, it was his actions, his heart, and his love that made him more real than he ever imagined possible.